Hi team, welcome to the session on Coffee with Prabh, and we have our special guest, Mr. Abhilash, and he currently working as a CISO in OQ Trading. Hi sir, how are you?
Good. How are you doing, Prabh?
I'm good, sir. If you talk about Mr. Abhilash, he having a 24 years plus of experience in IT and cybersecurity, and currently is handling a CISO position. And team, trust me, it is not easy task to taking out the time on a weekend for such a noble cause. Sir, we really thankful for taking out the time for this particular session, and I'm sure those who are watching these videos and all that will be a great benefit for them. Thank you so much, sir.
Absolutely. I think, and I should thank you as well because the forum is really good in the sense that in the number of followers who basically look at you as a leader in terms of learning experiences, of course. So I think I should also thank you here. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So, Abhilash, sir, like before I basically start a session on this topic, what we're going to discuss today, which is on the cybersecurity best practice for business from a CISO perspective, I always ask the one basic question from every participant is, what was your journey? Like, how you started with IT, and are you clear with about this? Okay, after 10 year, I will be a CISO, or I want to move into cybersecurity because the journey started from IT. Normally,
Yeah.
like this is how the core profile look like, because even I
Yeah.
started my journey with IT and then I moved to cybersecurity. So how
Yeah.
you started your journey in IT, and how you decided you will go to cybersecurity, and how you decided, okay, one day I will be a head of security.
Yeah. So I think, when I started, of course, coming from India, started as a systems administrator back in India, then, moved to Dubai. Started working for banks first. So during that experience, I just realized that I was keen at finding, especially from a security side of things. I started working with a lot of professionals because it was an MNC that I was working for, and the bank had a lot of professionals from a cybersecurity perspective. So since I was looking at the infrastructure piece of it, there used to be a day-to-day interaction with these guys. So when I started looking at their kind of work, I just realized that it's a really fascinating kind of area where I think I basically had that mindset. I think cybersecurity requires a specific mindset where you will not be thinking like an IT administrator. You also have to think about what's going to happen from a controls perspective as well. So I think I had it in me. That's how I felt when I started this. So I started preparing. Even while I was working in an infrastructure capacity, I started looking at cybersecurity as well, because usually when you look at an infrastructure person, you just look at how to build an infrastructure, maybe look at the architecture, maybe look at how exactly we can provide a service without much of a downtime, etc. But I also looked at the cybersecurity aspects as well. So I think that kind of mindset basically got me here. And during that time, although I was working within the infrastructure, I was not looking at moving into cybersecurity, but still, I was interested in learning. I started getting certified, especially in audit perspective. I started with CISA. I didn't go for any courses or anything. I just started learning online and reading the books and things like that. I became a CISA, CISM, all of that during that time. So I think that's how it basically started. And I think even for the newcomers who are basically coming into cybersecurity space, I feel that, and it's just my opinion, maybe I'm not right, but in my opinion, you basically need to have some level of IT background for you to succeed in cybersecurity, is what I feel. Just directly getting into cybersecurity may not really be the right thing. For example, you look at cybersecurity roles such as becoming an architect. Unless you understand the overall landscape of technology, how
Hmm.
exactly can you be an architect? Because you need to
Exactly.
understand how the networks work, how the infrastructure works, how the connectivity, all of that. If you understand, I think you can be a better architect, I would just say. And I think even from other perspective of cybersecurity as well. So I think I was lucky enough to basically start from an IT space, and then gradually move into cybersecurity. And I was not really looking at becoming a CIS or something. It just happened. I was not looking at oh, one day I have to become this. I was mostly interested in this field. So I just did whatever I can, in even in the capacity of an infrastructure guy as well. But yeah, eventually I got there is all I can say.
And thanks for this amazing response, because this is the very important information what you shared about. Like you need to have a good understanding about the IT. Like Because
Yeah,
nowadays what happened, what the freshers are doing is they're directly going to YouTube videos, learning about direct hacking instead of learning about what is a thing behind hacking, how it got
yeah,
hacked. So that's a very
yeah.
important point, Mr. Abhilash, you have shared about this. And recently what happened in one of my podcasts, I also started asking this question as you're heading the cybersecurity position. When you looking for a candidate normally, okay, as a fresher or experience, what is the most important thing you always look in the candidate when you're hiring for your team? Because why I ask this question is because I always ask this question from a leadership position, because this can be very useful for the people who watching this video. They especially freshers, because when they're basically preparing their CVs and preparing a job interviews, they have a some kind of a clarity. Okay, so the person who heading the CISO and all that, they see candidate from this viewpoint. So do you wish to share any point for that? Because it can be very useful for the upcoming people who looking for a job in cybersecurity, especially in Middle East.
I think, during the entire experience within this IT space, I've always looked at one single thing
Hmm.
on top of everything else, and it's just the attitude. Attitude is
Okay.
the most important one, I guess.
Okay.
So if you look at it, someone who's actually coming from an IT background can become cybersecurity. He can become an application guy. Of course, it'll depend on how exactly he's interested in that specific area,
Hmm.
how exactly he want to grow in that area, and how exactly his interests are. So looking at it, for example, if I'm hiring a person, I basically look at, are you willing to learn? Because you look at, for example, I'm looking at it. Look at the amount of technology that are happening on a daily basis. It's crazy, right? I cannot be knowing everything, but I should be having that willingness to
I am
learn.
understanding.
Otherwise, it's not really going to happen inside, not just in cybersecurity. I think overall any kind of technologies
Hmm.
like that.
Hmm.
Whatever I used, 10 years back, am I even using it? I'm not really using it. So I have to basically go on learning. So attitude matters is what all I would say. If you're willing to learn, if you know that you have the right kind of attitude from a not just from a technology, from a personal perspective as well.
Hmm.
If you're a quick learner, if you're someone who has that ability to sit down and then try and understand in depth about a specific subject, and if you're someone who is actually willing to collaborate, for example, it's a very important one, especially within cybersecurity stuff. You need to have a collaborative mindset, and you also need to have the basics clear, because
Hmm.
like we say, you just directly get into a cybersecurity role may not really be the right thing unless you know about how exactly TCP/IP works. That's
Hmm.
definitely a basic. Of course, you can learn that, but I'm not looking for someone to basically teach from scratch as well. So
Hmm.
you have to have that basic knowledge in that space. So I think most importantly, it is the right attitude and the willingness to learn, and of course, should be a team player. These three are the most important ones according to me.
But when we're talking about attitude, we can only judge when the we schedule the call. So here, lot of people or a lot of students basically face one issue is they don't receive a call.
Yeah,
So what is your
yeah,
advice for the people? What is the most important thing you want to recommend them? How to improve their CVs? If you can spend 5 minutes on that, it will be very
yeah.
grateful. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, now I think it's just a world full of opportunities
Hmm.
to showcase your talent. If
Hmm.
you are, for example, you're a hacker, you have plenty of things that you can do online, and also you can also attend different conferences as a
Hmm.
student, where
Hmm.
you can showcase that, you have a talent in that specific
Excellent.
space, you can absolutely let the world know that, I am good at it. So it is just one of the great things that you can do. Instead of just going after academics and then, coming up with a certificate, you can possibly look at your own projects as well. Nobody's
Hmm.
asking you to just work for a company at the beginning. You can look at uh, like we say bug bounties and things like that. Lots of different opportunities, especially within cybersecurity. You look at technology, IT administrator, maybe you cannot do a lot of things there,
Hmm.
but in cybersecurity, definitely there are opportunities where you can actually do something, and then that can also be used and built within your profile to increase your visibility as well. So I think, from a cybersecurity things, it is easy when you actually look at a CV, look at the things that he has done, even as a student, look at the project that he has done,
Hmm.
even as a student. That makes a lot of difference. And it is not the number of technologies; it is the things that you have done. Like, it is the projects that you have done probably will basically make it to the top. Is all I would say.
And if he's a fresher, then
Even for a fresher also, that's exactly what I was trying to say.
okay.
Even for a fresher as well, there are opportunities there. See, it is not that easy in a fresher's case. Whenever I've looked at freshers, I basically look at speaking to them, I'm saying that, yeah, we cannot basically interview 1,000 people. That is for sure. So you look at, I would basically look at, sort of whatever I've done in the past is mostly just, getting them to answer specific questions.
Hmm.
That basically comes from an attitude perspective and also from their overall learning perspective. So technology skills and also attitude side. So these kind of questions basically help us to uh, go to the next level, shortlist them to a smaller number so that we can go into our interview section as well.
That's great. So as we said, the primary agenda of this particular podcast was, sharing your viewpoint from a CISO perspective. What is the best essential practice we have to consider when you're looking from the organization point of view. So, what is your viewpoint? If this video is basically watching by the CISOs or aspiring CISO, we have so many material. One expert say we need to have a cyber security strategy. One expert say you need to have a best SIM solution. One expert say you need to have a security awareness training, and one expert basically say you need to have this particular program. As a CISO, because guys, those who are watching this video, I want to tell you one thing is, Mr. Abhilash was taking care of the GRC of his company. He taking care of the control implementation. He ensured the SOC. He ensured incident response and all that. So it's so the person who's standing who's in this podcast. We are very lucky because this guy basically having a skill set of all the vertical. So the person like him, So sir, what is your recommendation? How to secure organization from basics instead of getting into the functionality or core technical and all that? What is your recommendations as a CISO?
Yeah, I think, I basically wanted to speak about the fundamental
Ha.
cybersecurity practices. Instead of, looking at, you look at, people will say, oh, why don't you have an AI-based solution?
Hmm.
You have plenty of, detection and response kind of AI-based solution,
Hmm.
and then, they try to sell it. And I think, now when I compare it to the last 10 years back, I didn't have any tools in place. Now look at the
Hmm.
number of tools in every single space, just crazy. Just becomes so difficult for you to choose one as well because they're just amazing. All the tools are really good, and then a lot of them we cannot even do a proper comparison as well.
Agree.
But what happens mostly these days is that we basically get caught up in these new technologies, and we are mostly spending our time looking at the solutions instead of looking at the basics. So I think, uh, because I network a lot of my peers and things like that. I've attended a couple of conferences here and there, and I speak to different people. Some of them are really honest about what's happening in the organization, what's happening in their own lives as security professionals. What I understand is that the basics are sometimes forgotten, especially today's digital landscape. The pace of technological advancement is masked only by the ingenuity of cyber criminals seeking to exploit every potential weakness, right? And businesses and individuals alike navigate this complex environment. The importance of robust security practices cannot be overstated for sure. While all these cutting edge technologies and sophisticated defenses, they will always steal the spotlight these days, but it is a foundational practices that should form the bedrock of our effective cybersecurity for any organization. This is what I feel. And I think mostly you shouldn't be neglecting the essential practices that can actually open doors to vulnerabilities that sophisticated measures might miss. Look at the successful infiltrations or successful data thefts that have happened. You will see that they did not happen because there was a complex kind of vulnerability or something, or just it was a complex way the hacker was extremely technical. He got into it through some really complex method and all. It
Hmm.
is usually due to the lack of a basic patch, for example.
Hmm.
The vulnerability was there, it was not patched properly,
Hmm. So
or
it's
it
not a
was not even
security, but it
addressed.
is more like an operation issue.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I
Hmm.
think it is actually the lack of these basic things is what is causing the issue.
Hmm.
So you name a few, I can basically say that a lot of companies I know, especially when it comes, I speak about a lot of small to medium sized companies, because those are the companies where it's happening, especially in the Middle East. You look at it,
Hmm.
the number of attacks have increased drastically, probably
Hmm.
more than 80% and 90%. It's all happening against the small to medium sized enterprises because uh, they do not have certain basic things. I know that they'll have an endpoint or like sort of an EDR will be there, endpoint detection will be there, maybe a virus scanner will be there, all of that will be there. But certain things which are really important. For example, employee security training. It is a basic requirement. If it is not there, absolutely you will have an impact. You don't have a patch management policy. That is a basic requirement. It is an important requirement. Without that, it will definitely have issues. You don't have data backups. If that is not there, then anything that we do is not going to be useful. You will have all these tools in play. When ransomware attack happens, you don't have the backup done. So you don't have your basics means you're going to get into trouble. I think that's what I basically wanted to speak about today.
So, Mr. Blush, like if you talk about, we are not talking about, suppose, we have a lot of theory, we have a lot of books, and we have a lot of white papers who basically talk about cybersecurity. As a CISO, as a practical CISO, if I join any startup or any business firm and all that, what is the first step and what is the last step to maintain the security? Like, this is always a dilemma, do we conduct risk assessment or do we go for gap assessment? As a CISO, what is your approach when you starting a cybersecurity information security practice in the organization?
I would always look at it from a risk assessment perspective, just looking at what exactly we have, what we don't have. So risk assessment also includes the gap assessment as well. You basically try and understand what kind of controls are available and what kind of controls are not available. And then most of the cases people will look at the big item. Oh, you don't have a DLP in place. Let's just go build a DLP. So before that, I would look at the basics. What are the quick wins here? How quickly can we get to my goal? That's what I look at. So I'll just look at what exactly can I achieve fairly quickly. For example, you don't have a mail security in place. That's probably something that I can do in 1 month's time.
True.
If I'm going to do a DLP, I have to go through classification, I have to do the policies, then I have to get the entire departments, up and running with all this information, training. So it's going to be crazy. So why don't you look at something that you can do even in a shorter time? So look at the quick wins and then start from there. Once you have done the risk assessment, you have a clear understanding of what is there, what is not there. And from there, that's how I start. And basically, it takes me, it's a journey. So it's never going to end. You ask me where exactly we will end this also. There is no end because this is a continuous journey. Technologies are evolving. The number of vulnerabilities are also evolving. Hackers are evolving. So while all of these are happening, we cannot just close it and say, okay, we are now fully secure. It's not going to happen. So we have to continuously monitor, continuously address issues. Remediation is a continuous process as well.
So once you basically we done with the risk assessment and we found the controls and all that, after that, what can be the next step after that?
So as I mentioned, you look at you basically build an information security program. So information security program, you look at the priorities you have. So in those as well, like I said, I'm just going to look at the quick wins first. I do not, of course, if you look at the risk, metrics, maybe certain things will be like at the top level. Maybe certain things will be the lower level, but if it is a quick win, I will look at that first instead of waiting for this waiting for implementing this based on the risk metrics or the priority of the risk. So that's how I would like to look at it, because you never know. You might say that okay, because of this huge issue, we don't have a DLP, we are going to have an issue, but probably the issue will happen because you don't have a patch. So the patch management system could be one of the key things that you should be doing. So yeah, the prioritization based on quick wins is what I will use. That's how I usually do it.
Okay. And any challenge that you face while implementing things, because as a CISO, the person is basically act like a bridge between the operation business. On one side, Mr. Abhilash has to convey the business why security is important, and on the other side, the operation team, security operation team, you need to explain them why business is important. So as a CISO, how do you see that particular balance approach? Do you face any challenge while implementing some initiatives, and if you face challenge, how you overcome that? Can you just share your experience on that area?
Yeah, I think mostly the most of this basically come from. I think this is the most important. There is no replacement for this. Is what I have learned. From my experience. I used to work for banks in the past. With both banks. The first bank I learned this concept of having a buy-in from the top management. It cannot be replaced. Nothing can be done about it. You can just say whatever you want. you're doing all the controls in place. Without this, their support, any kind of information security project, the program is definitely going to suffer. So that is what you have to work on. So any of these kind of things, anything that requires business support, anything that requires some coordination between IT and business and cybersecurity, you need to have this buy-in, and it cannot be something that is hidden, just once in a year kind of a letter. They have to show their willingness to support whole through these cybersecurity processes and programs. So that is what I would like to build. So I basically learned it. I basically learned it during my first experience at the bank, and then I used the same method in the next organization where I worked in. So because sometimes, even they used to be like, why are you teaching me cybersecurity all the time? But there is no other way, because once it happened, once something happens, they realize. So I basically tell them, even though they were like, when we started WhatsApp, I started sending incidents that are happening around the world, for example, so that this is happening. Most of them, it's like, you look at Instagram, you will look at what you are interested in. You're
Exactly.
not going to see what's happening in another country, for example. So
Yeah.
for them also, it's like that. They are basically looking at how to run the business properly, how to make it profitable. They are not interested in cybersecurity. So I am their Instagram reel that basically keeps on sending them. They don't have a choice but look at it. At least read, what I have sent. And then I also, when I pass by, I'll have a word with them. I think that is the most important one. Once you have that, all of this becomes fairly easy, because once you have that support, any department will support you in many ways. I'm not trying to say that all of us will have all of us will be lucky to have tech savvy senior management who can understand these challenges and issues, but I'm saying that it is one of the most important necessities if you really want to succeed in this space.
And it's a very great point you have discussed about, as per the need, we need to provide the data and all that. Uh, uh, as a CISO, we are heading a role of technology plus governance and all that. What is your message for the aspiring CISOs, when they're joining as a CISO in the company, what is the 5 or 6 or whatever the number of quality they must have to sustain their position in this in the organization, because this is a very critical position. If
Yeah.
everything goes best, then you are the best CISO of this world, and if everything
Yeah.
goes worst, you are the worst
it,
CISO of this
it
world.
needn't be everything, Prabh.
Yeah.
It can be a very small thing as well, just a thin line between these two. Yeah.
So
So
what is
yeah, I
your
think,
suggestion? Yeah.
from a CISO perspective, I think most importantly is this. People basically, sometimes I look at this CISO like job descriptions,
Yeah.
looking for like they're trying to hire. Look at the job description. You should know alien water sim. You should know. I'm like, are you serious? What exactly is a CISO? I think a lot of organizations still need time to basically understand what a CISO is. CISO is a C-level guy of the company who's somewhat similar in position with the CFO or the CEO in reality. I would also like them to report directly into the board, but it doesn't always happen. But I'm just saying that is the right way to do it if you really want to have a proper cybersecurity hygiene at work. And then, so I think from a CISO perspective, that is the most important one uh, quality that a CISO should have. He should be able to collaborate with senior management, and he should be able to influence them. Without that, like I said, you need to have the budgets, for example. You want controls, everything technically, but how do you get approvals? Unless you can influence the senior management, unless you can speak to them, unless you can convince them, you cannot be a proper CISO, is what I would say. So it's one of the absolutely important qualities that you need to have. You should have some experience in this space. For example, I've seen a project manager becoming a CISO.
Hmm.
And a lot of people ask me, how can a project manager from a cybersecurity side become a CISO? I
Hmm.
know that person, I know him personally, and I knew that this is the right job for the guy. He had a completely like correct set of skills and qualities that basically fit in properly for this role, because
Huh.
he could go and convince anyone. He had a clear understanding of every technology that was used within the organization. He was managing projects from the infrastructure side. He was looking at applications. So the overall knowledge of technologies were there. And on top of cybersecurity, leave it aside. He knows the technologies. He knows how to go speak to senior management, other business people, and he could influence people. And all those talents were there. Along with that, the cybersecurity knowledge and that skill at understanding controls and risk management basically made him a CISO. So I was like, this is the right combination of skills. So all of us cannot be having all of these skills together because some of us are completely technical. We understand things in depth, but when it comes to networking and speaking to even I myself struggle with in the sense what I'm trying to say is that I'm not a born networker. I cannot just go and hit a conversation someone that I've just seen now. I need some time to know the person. Then I will probably open up. But what I'm trying to say is you need to have a skill where you can speak to different people within business and then convince them on what exactly is required from a cybersecurity perspective. They should be able to understand it. You should be able to convince them. You should be able to even go to any levels to basically have a success for your cybersecurity program as well. So I think this is the most important one. And then of course, like I said, as usual, whatever we say in any kind of field, you need to have the right attitude. And and also I would say that it should be someone who's coming from an IT background first, can be from an application side, can be from an infrastructure side, networks, anything. But he should have had at least 5 to 10 years of experience in the IT side of things as well. Only then I would say that he can become a CISO. Only then he will understand the complete landscape. Otherwise, he's going to struggle. Just by having business skills alone will not make him a CISO as well. He also needs to look at his team from a cybersecurity side of things, understand their pain points, understand the cybersecurity pain points as well, and then help them fix it as well.
Excellent. And that's a very good point you have talked. And I'm going to make a bullet point for this because I used to prepare the blogs. And thanks for that particular thing, Abhilash.
Right.
So, Abhilash, one important thing, when it comes to social network and all that, what is a recommendation for the CISOs, uh, that is there a good advice to join conferences and all that? Does that social connect or physical connect what we build in this kind of a conference, will it be useful for the aspiring CISOs who are looking for a position of CISO in the future?
Just a difficult one. I would say that when it comes to these kind of conferences, a lot of them basically give you knowledge. That is definitely there. I cannot just deny the fact. But conferences have become like a lot of them are happening. It's like an award here, award there, and then sometimes you find that this is not that. It's just a gimmick where you're basically having some sponsor to get in and then portray there. But at the same time, you can also look for anything that you look at. You will always have positive, negative things. So I basically look at it from a positive side of things. What I do is I look at the conference schedule, the agenda. There could be things that I'm really interested in. I look at who's going to speak about it because sometimes you can understand from their profile. For example, somebody is talking about AI specific cybersecurity controls. I look at who exactly is going to speak about it. It's a very important subject for me because I'm looking into that area right now. It's something that where I want to learn from. And then if I'm interested, I definitely go. And then, if you're a natural networker, of course, you have plenty of opportunities to network with people. And in Dubai, especially in the UAE, I think, we have the support from the government, which is an amazing thing. We have a cybersecurity council, and then, the support is really amazing, unlike any other country, I would say. So that is an amazing thing as well. And we also talk about, how exactly the entire GCC can come together to collaborate on these subjects as well. These kind of conferences and collaborations can be extremely useful, and this needn't they needn't come from just different organizations alone. It can be sponsored by the government as well. It can actually help build a community kind of feeling. It can actually help us be open about what exactly we are going through. Sometimes it can help us share threat intelligence maybe. So you can take it to any kind of levels based on whatever you like to do. So I think any aspiring CISO, will have to attend them to basically learn from it, and of course, to network with the peers in the industry as well.
That's a great point. Actually, that because I've seen a lot of conferences now, where the pre-sales people are speakers and they're giving a session to CISO. So that's why I was thinking, like, from your
Yeah,
viewpoint, from your angle, how do you see this as an opportunity? And the last, before we basically, I'm sorry, I'm asking so many questions, Mr.
that's okay.
Abhilash.
Yeah,
So like suppose I'm a BSc guy or BCA guy. So when it comes to CISO, like, is it mandatory for him to do some leadership trainings? Like, is it important for his skills? Like when it comes to the CISO part and all that.
yeah. I think leadership trainings are always useful.
Hmm.
What I am is because of the trainings that I obtained from my first bank where I work for, basically molded me into what I am today.
Hmm.
And depends on what kind of trainings are you doing, and then I think a lot of good organizations basically analyze you, and based on that they train you in a specific direction. So I think I was very lucky enough to basically get in that space. I was trained properly to become a leader, and different kind of leadership qualities were also like subjects of the trainings as well. So that has helped me immensely. So I would always suggest that anything that you learn is not a
Hmm.
waste of time.
That's great because I've seen a lot
Anything
of.
that you learn. For example, I will not be sitting here and then talking to you as a cybersecurity head
Hmm.
unless I decided to learn on that day. And then I did not think I'll become this or that or whatever. I had a genuine interest, and then I started uh, preparing myself for some certification exam. That's how I started. So I think and I'm coming from that experience. That's why I'm saying that in anything that you learn, even if it is leadership or any kind of subject, it's never going to be a waste. It's definitely going to help you on a longer run.
That was the point, because that is because I've seen, because in the last 5 6 years, the leadership trainings for CISOs become mandatory, because they are
Yeah.
not only technical, but they have to see, they need to have their emotionally strong and strategically how
Hmm.
they basically think from problem statement perspective. So that was the reason I asked that question.
Yeah.
Thanks, Abhilash sir, like taking out this time for this particular podcast, and we're really grateful for for your wisdom and thoughts what you have shared on this particular podcast. So I always request, one important thing is that if we invite you again on this particular podcast, will you be open for such kind of a sessions for the freshers or who want to make a journey in cybersecurity?
Absolutely, absolutely. We know where exactly we come from. We are never going to forget where exactly we came from.
Excellent.
So always willing to help anyone. Even people can even reach out even personally as well. We just try to do whatever we can
So I can
as
share your
long as
LinkedIn
we have the
profile in the
time.
description box.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir, for taking out the time for this session, and be really grateful that you have, taken out this time for this particular session.
So thank you very much for having me, Prabh.
Thank you, sir. So this is all from our side, and if you're new to the channel, do subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon to make sure you should not miss the future videos. And we'll try to disturb Mr. Abhilash again for the next podcast. And do share me your suggestion in the comment box. What is the next podcast we can record with Mr. Abhilash? Thank you so much. Good day. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Prabh.